미국 대선 역사상 시청자 수가 역대 최고 기록을 갱신했던 2016년 대선 토론 8,400만 명이 지켜보는 가운데 1차 TV 토론에서는 공화당 후보인 도널드 트럼프가 언급하는 단어의 민주당 후보인 힐러리 클린턴이 CNN 앵커에게 신호를 보내는 모습이 포착되었는데요. 저희 뉴욕 부부는 CNN과 민주당이 어떻게 대선 토론을 조작하였는지 확인시켜 드리겠습니다.
It's about time that this country had somebody running it that has an idea about money. When we have $20 trillion in debt and our country's a mess, you know.
트럼프가 국가 부채에 대해 언급하자 힐러리가 CNN 앵커에게 신호를 보냅니다.
It's one thing to have 20 trillion in debt and our roads are good and our bridges are good and everything's in great shape. Our airports are like from a third world country. You land at LaGuardia, you land at Kennedy, you land at LAX, you land at Newark, and you come in from Dubai and Qatar and you see these incredible, you come in from China, you see these incredible airports and you land, we've become a third world country. So the worst of all things has happened. We owe $20 trillion and we're a mess. We haven't even started. And we've spent $6 trillion in the Middle East, according to a report that I just saw, whether it's 6 or 5, but it looks like it's 6. $6 trillion in the Middle East. We could have rebuilt our country twice. And it's really a shame. And it's politicians like Secretary Clinton that have caused this problem. Our country has tremendous problems. We're a debtor nation, we're a serious debtor nation, and we have a country that needs new roads, new tunnels, new bridges, new airports, new schools, new hospitals, and we don't have the money because it's been squandered on so many of your ideas.
Let you
and
respond,
maybe
and we'll move to our
because
next.
you haven't paid any federal income tax for a lot of years. And the other thing I think is important
It would be squandered too, believe me.
보셨듯이 CNN 앵커 레스터 홀트는 다음 질문으로 넘어가기 전 힐러리에게 트럼프가 언급한 국가 부채에 대해 반박할 기회를 줍니다. 다음 영상을 보시겠습니다.
We have to bring back law and order. Now, whether or not in a place like Chicago you do stop and frisk, which worked very well, Mayor Giuliani is here, it worked very well in New York, it brought the crime rate way down.
불신 검문이라는 단어가 나오자 힐러리는 이번에도 사인을 보냅니다.
By crime,
Your 2 minutes has expired, but I do want to follow up. Stop and frisk was ruled unconstitutional in New York because it largely singled out black and Hispanic young men.
No.
대통령 후보들끼리 토론을 벌이는 자리에서 사회자가 대통령 후보의 이견에 대해 반박하고 트럼프의 말을 끊어 힐러리가 불신 검문에 대해 반박할 수 있도록 질문을 토스해 줍니다.
There are the right ways of doing it, and then there are ways that are ineffective. Stop and frisk was found to be unconstitutional. Too many young African American and Latino men ended up in jail for nonviolent offenses, and it's just a fact that if you're a young African American man and you do the same thing as a young white man, you are more likely to be arrested, charged, convicted, and incarcerated.
Well, I'll tell you, I haven't given lots of thought to NATO, but two things. Number one, the 28 countries of NATO, many of them aren't paying their fair share. Number two, and that bothers me because we
누리는 혜택만큼 방위비를 충분히 안 내는 가입국이 많다는 발언에 또다시 신호를 보냅니다.
should be as we're defending them, and they should at least be paying us what they're supposed to be paying by treaty and contract. I had numerous conversations with Sean Hannity at Fox, and Sean Hannity said, and he called me the other day, and I spoke to him about it. He said, you were totally against the war because he was for the war.
Why is your judgment better than...
And that was before the war started. Sean Hannity said very strongly to me and other people, he's willing to say, but nobody wants to call him, I was against the war. He said, you used to have fights with me because Sean was in favor of the war. And I understand that side also, not very much because we should have never been there.
Secretary Clinton.
Woo, okay. Let's talk about two important issues that were briefly mentioned by Donald. First, NATO. You know, NATO as a military alliance has something called Article 5, and basically it says this: an attack on one is an attack on all. And do you know the only time it's ever been invoked? After 9/11, when the 28 nations of NATO said that they would go to Afghanistan with us to fight terrorism, something that they still are doing by our side. With respect to Iran, when I became Secretary of State, Iran was weeks away from having enough nuclear material to form a bomb. They had mastered the nuclear fuel cycle under the Bush administration. They had built covert facilities. They had stocked them with centrifuges that were whirling away. And we had sanctioned them. I voted for every sanction against Iran when I was in the Senate, but it wasn't enough. So I spent a year and a half putting together a coalition that included Russia and China to impose the toughest sanctions on Iran. And we did drive them to the negotiating table. And my successor, John Kerry, and President Obama got a deal that put a lid on Iran's nuclear program without firing a single shot. That's diplomacy. That's coalition building. That's working with other nations.
대선 토론에서 이러한 편파적인 모습은 오히려 민주당 후보 힐러리에게 해가 되었고, 압도적인 힐러리의 승리를 예측했던 언론사들의 예측이 빗나가자 많은 미국인들이 언론사를 더 이상 신뢰하지 않는 계기가 되었습니다. 다가오는 2020년 대선에도 CNN은 여전히 민주당 후보 조 바이든의 압도적인 승리를 예측하고 있습니다. 하지만 큰 이변이 생기지 않는 이상 트럼프의 재선은 확정된 것이라고 예측되고, 오늘 저희 영상을 시청해주셔서 감사하고 저희는 다음 영상으로 찾아뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.